Okay, now to build a log store, I want something that's easy to make. The idea of my DIY, I want at my age, sweet and simple. That's all I want. Sounds like I'm talking about the wife. Sweet and simple. Sweet. Just. Okay, now listen, this is what we call in the UK a standard pallet, okay? So this one's, what is that? Let's do it in feet. It's just over 3 feet, but it's also on the length of the pallet, right? Is about 4 feet. Now I can use these slats, remove these slats, and I can use those possibly for the side and certainly for any roof slatting, anything I want to use on the roof. But if you search around, you can also pick up a pallet that's larger. Now you've got to go around the industrial estates, distribution centres, supermarkets, wholesalers, anywhere they get stuff on bulk. Generally, if they're not spray marked, sometimes they've got a spray mark on them. Here in the UK, sometimes I think it's a blue mark on a pallet. That means they're reusable. They use them, they're well made, they use them again. A lot of them, I mean, it's shocking really, it's just a wastage. And, you know, there are people who take them away, just crush them up, dump them, repulp them, whatever. But it's good wood, there's nothing wrong with the wood at all. So, I will get some of these pallets from those industrial estates. If you drive around, ask them nicely, just don't take them, go and ask them first. Are you going to use the pallets? Can I take some? Generally, they are so pleased for you to take them away. It's unbelievable. It's grateful. You could start a beautiful relationship with a wholesaler. Get your wood, get a load of pallets on the standard size, but if you search around, you can find a longer pallet like this one. Yes, that's right. It's a long pallet. This one, in fact, is, he says, putting on the English spectacles, wow, 63 inches long. Okay, so let's call it 5 feet. These slats are what you need to make the apex at the back. Imagine that's the back, and that's what we're going to make like this. But of course, if you use those pallets there, the height really is just going to be 4 foot at the highest point. That's going to be a reduced area for log storage. So if you get these longer pallets, you need to track them down. It saves joining some of those slats together. Of course, I can make any size back I want, but it means joining them together. And as I say, I want to do it like the wife. Sweet and simple. Now this comes in 3-inch wide slats on these, but there's only, I'll show you there, 4 on each. So you're going to need a good number of pallets there, because you're going to make not just the back, but obviously a couple of sides as well. And then you've got the apex of the roof at the top. The apex of the roof is going to be like this, okay? But you might want perhaps 4 feet 6 this side, but if you've got plenty of these slats, you can build it as high as you want. And instead of putting a steep apex on your roof like this, you can put a much shallower one. You only want enough of the rain to run off, just to keep it dry, and that allows you to use more of the sides. You're going to come up higher there because it's much taller. Okay, now tools to use. Okay, this is what I'm going to be using. What I'm going to be using to just dismantle these, you can call it a club hammer. Years ago we used to call them a coal hammer. It's pretty heavy. It gives a good crack on the top of the wrecking bar, which has a curve there, you can see, which is good for getting it underneath the slats and levering, but you do not want to splinter them. And obviously the wrecking bars we use over in the UK, you've got to be, I imagine they're the same worldwide, as used by all burglars, is, no, I don't mean that burglars, honestly, really, is a little curve at the top, but they're both slotted so you can get in there, get a nail on, and these are much easier to lever out the nails than a regular claw hammer, which is what most people would use as a claw hammer. It depends when they fire these nails in commercially, when they're made, the manufacturing stage, they're not going to be doing it hammer and nailing, are they? They're going to be doing it with a nail gun, and it depends what that's set on, like an air release one, a gas filled one. Sometimes they drive the nails in a long way, and it's a bit of a pain to get out, but hey ho. Away we go. Now we've got to strip these down. So what I like about these really, it's making a log store with sort of 3 or 4 of my favourite terms that I look for in all shops, wherever I go. Prices reduced, special offer, to clear, sail on, or the ultimate one, which this one is, free. Let's get started and strip some of these down, break it down into the components, and then we'll work on the design of our log store. Now, I've got 3 intermediate slats, crossbars we call them if you like, a bit thicker wood, and the same at each end, these supports. Now when I start leaving away here, I could have a lot of elbow grease and general muscle strain to get that started. So because these are longer pallets and I'm not working to a measurement, what I'm doing is I'm building this log store to the specifications of the wood I can get from the pallet. I'm not really worried about critical measurements. So what I'm going to do, just to it's going to save me some work, that's for sure. Glasses on, set square. I'm going to cut just straight across these, like this. You can run right up against that support, like this. And that way, there is 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's well, 30 or 40 here, nails, that I don't have to lever out. And by running this reciprocal saw blade flat right the way through, no, don't do it short because the tip of the blade is going to bang in this one. And you know, you get to buckle the blade. It's not sort of health and safety, you know, I'm mad there with these health and safety issues. But to me, it's not so much health and safety, it's just straight common sense. Use a blade that either goes under here just, or all the way through both of those at the same time. And run it all the way down the edge there. And I've got a couple of slats under the bottom here, so I can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can get 6 slats off of this. Let's whip this end off and you'll see it easier. Now how easy was that? Just cutting that spar out using the reciprocal saw with a long blade. It's a wood cutting blade, by the way, in case anybody wants to know. Don't go get a metal cutting one because it will be too fine. The teeth will be too fine. That saved me taking all those nails out there. Now if I cut that down here and here, do you know where it fits? Right inside my log burner, so nothing is wasted. I obviously nip the other end off as well, and that just leaves me the leverage here with that crowbar and hammer to lever the nails out of here without splitting them. And look, if you do get a little bit of a split, it doesn't matter. It's a log store. It's intended to keep your logs that go on the fire dry. Let's move on to the next phase. Right, you can use this. There's the nails, 2 nails sticking up. Use this, you can put it on the concrete floor and keep the 2 heads of the nails close. Well, don't leave it way over here because there's too much spring in the wood. You want as much shock to go through the head of the nail, out the other end and push it out because they're put in with nail guns, so they are buried a bit. Just tap them. All you're going to do is pop that head through a bit. You can put them down with a claw hammer, lever them out. Okay, now here is a totally awesome tip for you. Where do you put all these nails? You're looking around thinking, I've got all these nails. Graham's already told me don't get them in the car tyres and certainly don't get them in my bodily parts, feet, etc. So where are you going to put them? You look around, oh, these containers. Why not go in the refuse bin? The recycling bin is a polite word for it. Get yourself an old milk carton, okay? Now you see they've got the grip on the back. If you just start your hole and get a pair of scissors, cut around the front like this, just around there, chew your way around the plastic, but leave the handle bit there. I'll show you this, it all becomes immediately apparent. Snip it there. You can leave the top on, or you can actually, what I normally do is this, because I'll tell you what it's good for, paintbrushes, cleaning paintbrushes, washing them off when you've got terps and cleaning you've got to put in there. That makes a nice big hole there. I can drop them in like this. In go all these nails. Not only that, there's a lovely little carrying handle. Hallelujah! It's free as well, folks. milk containers. Okay, well I've piled my way through all the pallets. I've got all the wood stacked there, and I've got all the thick base pieces I'm going to use over there as well. But it suddenly occurred to me, and we do have on our Totally Awesome Fishing Show DIY section a bit of a following. Well, we got a big women following. Did that come out right? A big women. I haven't got a big woman following me. A following of big women? No. We have a large enthusiastic following of women who like DIY. And it suddenly occurred to me that all this levering with a crowbar, is that going to be too much for people that like doing their DIY stuff? 2 tips I'm going to show you might just make things a little bit easier, because you don't want to split the wood, lose your temper, rip at it too much. So here's a couple of tips, just trying to make life a little bit easier. Okay, now if you use that curved end there, as I mentioned previously, you can probably see that there. It has actually just there, it's got a notch in it, you see. Now what you want to do is when you hammer this in, it's got a flat sort of flange here as well, and that is for hitting it with a hammer. Here we go. Get that underneath the nail that's in there. Don't pull it just like this on the edge, because you're going to split that edge there, and that piece of wood probably won't be any good to you. So what you want to do is when you hammer in, hammer it so the nail is as close in this V up here. When you hammer it in as close in this V as you can get. Then it's got the pressure on the nail, it'll lever it right out like that. That's an easy way of doing that one. It either tears the nail through as you lever it up, like this one, and then you can pull the nails out, easy peasy, like that, put them in that plastic milk bottle container. Or if the nails come out here, tap them through like I showed you before, and take them out. But there is another way to do it as well, and I'll tell you what, it's equally as easy, but again, I don't know whether women would use a club hammer. I really don't know. The guys, no problem at all. You can use this method with a crowbar, or you can use the one I'm going to show you now. And that method is using the trusty old club hammer here. Any big heavy hammer will do, but I also use this one for brick splitting. It's called, well, we call it a bolster. Some people I think call it a cold chisel, but it's a very wide one. Now that will cut through the nail on the wood. So in other words, you don't have to do any leaving and straining. I don't know whether the ladies that follow us, you would find this one easier, but you can drive it in. Let me just show you how you can lift the nails, and you cut right through. Actually, you don't need to lift the nail at all. That way you don't have to take them out. I'll just have a go with this one, see if I can get it through for you. Right, just touching the nail. The bolster's touching the nail there. You can, once you've got it pinched up, just move your hand away. Most men, you can use a leather glove as well. Trust me, if you hit your hand with this, even with a leather glove, it's not going to be good. Just cut through one nail. Tap it down till it goes tight, like this, rigid. That's gone right through both nails. Easy way to do it, give it a go. And this is almost the best part. All the wood is stripped down off the pallets. I've got all the long ones done. I'm going to do the short slats, you know, the regular sort of 48-inch ones as well, that are going to make some of the sides and some of the roof. All you do now, trim out any extra nails there, stack it in a heap, and you're ready to start measuring up. And then, well, let's go and take a look at the plan of what I intend building. I don't know why I thought, no, I'll have 5 minutes while I'm waiting, shall I? Well, you would, wouldn't you? Would. Would. Oh, cracks me out. Cracks in the wood. Oh dear, makes my side split. Yeah, split wood. Ah, I really nailed it this time. Okay, now this is basically the dry shelter for storing your wood in. Here's your logs. So you're going to be looking for an apex here because you want water to run off there. You want slats along the side. In the middle, you're going to need a centre spar up there to hold the front of this apex together, and a panel up the back there, a panel at the back here, one along the side. So that's the basic shape of it, and you stack your logs in there and the air can circulate. Now my particular one I'm going to do, you can put it flat on the ground if you want, but you're going to get damp come in, or you might get damp come in. What you can do is put a roll of DPC under some blocks here, or you can put it up on breeze blocks or actual house bricks. But I've got some spare bits of pallet. Don't forget, I want this one as cheap as chips, as cheap as I can do. So I'm going to use some offcuts of pallet wood. I might put 4, I might put 3, probably put 3 runners in there just to keep it sort of 2 or 3 inches off the ground. And that also gives me something to fix that centre spar there to hold up here. So that's what it looks like. So what we're going to be looking at the moment really is just this. You're going to be looking at that. Now if that makes sense to you, probably makes more sense to you than it makes sense to me. We're just going to concentrate on making 3 things at the moment. The back plate, okay, of slats like this. You must leave gaps, don't put it as close boarding. The 2 side panels, which will obviously come around the sides like this. You can imagine that's going to be 2 side panels. Roof comes up here. So I'm just going to concentrate for the moment on doing 2 side panels and 1 centre back plate, if we call it like that. Let's get back out in the garage and start knocking this one together, and you'll see it's much easier once you start working on it. Okay, so I've got all the wood tidied up now. Cleared all the floor off, all the other old wood's gone into the log burner, and then I've got my 2 different heights of pallets and a few spares down here. So these ones are going to be roof slats down here, these will probably be on the side, and these tall ones are going to be at, if you can imagine that back of the apex, I need 1 high one, and then they're going to be graded down. But I'm not going to make life difficult by pre-measuring either side each panel every time it goes down a 2-inch drop or something like that. I'm just going to make a complete board like this out of the full size of these with back supports, then mark my apex on it, and then use a reciprocal saw or the jigsaw to cut that. I feel that has got to be the easy way to go. Let's get it on the floor, laid out, and start hammering away. Now the first thing you want to do is I'm going to run 1 piece of board across the bottom just to give me a straight edge on the bottom, and I'm going to tap all these up against it like this. But just get yourself a set square because you want to have it at least fairly straight. Put it on the base here. I'm not going to be using this for anything but just a base marker, and slide it up here until you reach your first slat, because you want the first slat to go in straight, and then level it up so it's nice and straight there. Okay, so you know that one's at right angles, and of course you can come the other side, check it. If it's out a little bit, just lightly tap it back until you get it straight both sides, because if you start with 1 little gap just very, very slightly off, just slightly off, by the time you get to the other end, it's all going to be leaning over. So if you get your first 2 done first, you can work away with the set square. And once you've got the first strut across here and a strut up the top, you'll be away. Okay, now I've laid all the slats out just to give you some sort of idea. So look at that, you can see here what I'm making here is the centre back panel with the apex roof. Okay, now that shape, there's the apex roof. These are all the slats laid out. Now you can make these, as I said before, any size you want. There is no measurement, there's no magic formula. So what I'm doing is making this one, as a guide, 4 feet wide. Just trying to sort of get some sort of standardisation to work with. So I've got that 4 feet wide. I have a slat right down the bottom that I'm going to nail in. I have a slat about just over halfway up here. And just to give you a measurement, that is 32 inches up. You can put it 30, you can put it 29, do whatever you want. I'm just saying I've put it 32 inches up, measure it equidistant there so it's nice and level. And then up here, the top of the apex, I've taken a measurement of 5 feet to the top of the apex here. And to give me the bottom of the apex here, I've done 4'6", so I've got a 6-inch drop on the roof here. So any rain falls on there, it's going to run off, okay? In between, I've left slats. It's not rocket science, barely an inch, just round about an inch there. And you can work it out yourself, depending on which country you're in, what size of pallets you've got hold of, different grades, different thicknesses. It's just basic, cheap and cheerful pallet wood. Okay, so I've got everything tacked out here with the slats nailed down. I'm just using regular roundhead galvanised nails. Why? Because I had some in a tin. Okay, now I'm going to saw along here to give me the angle, and I'm going to saw along here to give me the angle using a reciprocal saw, which is the ones that go in and out very fast with a long blade. So you can use that, or you could use, because this is just pallet wood, a jigsaw. But bear in mind that if you're doing it from this side, there's a little ledge of 1/2 inch, which is the thickness of the pallet, which you're going to have to ride the base plate of your jigsaw on. Okay, so it might wobble, it might not be straight. I prefer doing it this way. So I have to wear the spectacles for safety reasons, that being the fact I can't see anything without them. Earphones. Now here's something worse. I think I just got to mention this. I'm no electrical buff, but the electrical buffs will tell you, you can only draw so much power from a big coil like this before it heats up in the centre, okay? Now once, through some misshapen idea that I knew what I was doing helping my wife, I did this and plugged it into the wife's washing machine because something had gone wrong with the plug. Well, we ran it for about half an hour. We could get this familiar smell of burning, and yet we didn't have an open fire. So where was this plastic melting smell coming from? It was coming from this. I started peeling the coil off and it was like melting in the middle. So if you've got a piece of equipment that is drawing a lot of power, that means it's a big thing. Like, don't put the washing machine on one of these. The way round it is to reduce this coil, because it is like, think of an electric fire, the old-fashioned electric fire with the coils. So what you want to do, I don't need to do anything small like this, but empty the entire reel. If you're in the garden, you've got something big running off, I don't know, a cement mix or something, peel it all off, and that way the heat is dissipated through there. It's not building up on the inside diameter of the coil. It's a safety factor. You know, you probably won't need it working with just a regular jigsaw or something like that, but anything else pulling bigger power, guys, be aware it will heat up, and if you want to check it, pull it all out after you've used it, feel it, it will be warm. Don't use anything like that for big things like washing machines like I did. Let's get these cuts done. I do find at times these saws work a lot better when they're plugged in. It's very hard sawing like this. I do this slowly because I want to go straight, and I like the long blade, which allows me to run along the edge of this without cutting into it. One off, and if I nip that much off it, do you know what happens? It turns into something that fits in my log burner. This may also sound stupid, guys, but do make sure that the workbench you're leaning on doesn't overlap the cut you intend making. Yes, I've done it as well. Okay, hopefully you can now see, here comes the end of the back plate and a nice easy apex. My nails are slightly over the thickness of these, so I'm just going to drive them through, bend them over and bury them in the wood this side. This piece is the back plate, then done. Here's another tip. If you're driving a nail through a springy piece of wood, going to move, get yourself another hammer on the other side, just to the side of the point where the nail's coming out, to act as something to absorb that shock, and you'll see it goes through much easier. And it doesn't damage the wood underneath. You see the energy changing from this hammer to that hammer and bouncing it off. All over here, I've got the points. I'm going to fold those over when I turn out the other way. Now, if you're going to bury a nail where the points come through, don't do it that way across the grain. Always try and bury them with the direction the grain is going, which in this case is here. You'll find they sink into the wood a bit better. Look, I can rub my hand over that. That's totally buried. If you do it across the grain, it just pinches the grain and sticks up a bit. I don't catch my fingers, and they're all safe tucked in there. Okay, so we've made the centre back plate there. We're now going to make the two sides, and I'm making those basically the same height as the edge of the bottom of the roof height here. So that's 4 feet. You can make it what you want, wherever that pallet comes out as. That's the sort of maximum I'm getting out of my pallet strips at the moment. 4 feet by 2 feet. I put the struts down here. I've done exactly the same as the last time. I've got my square, and before I've just got these tacked into place, I just slide this piece of wood on its edge, pull all these down onto the edge of it so I know I've got one straight edge. Put on my set square just to check both sides are level. I put 2 nails in here, did the same there. I've got my 24-inch struts, and I've actually made the centres of those 24. So it's 4 feet long, 2 feet wide, and 2 feet struts. Just makes it easy. And all I've got to do now is just fire in the rest of the nails, and then turn them over, drive them right through, and bury them. Otherwise, if I send them in too far, I end up nailing the whole thing to the floor of my garage. Or is it garage? Well, I guess you can see now it's starting to come together a little bit. I've got both sides made up there. Obviously, they can be fixed together like this. Bring this one out. I want to put a rack in the bottom so that it's exactly slatted the same as this to allow the air to circulate. That's the main principle, is to keep your wood dry, but you've got to have the air circulating. You do not want damp at all. I'm going to make a base plate for this, if you like, and then I'm going to raise it up. I've got some offcuts from the centre joist of the pallet, it's the main support of the pallet, and that will raise out 2 or 3 inches off the ground. That's going to keep it even better. So the next thing to do is I'm going to probably fix these 1, 2, 3 panels together. I will join just an artificial one here just to support and tack pin it. I won't drive the nails home, top and bottom, so it's all square. Turn it on its side, I can measure up and start to make the base plate. Okay, I've now squared this up, and just 2 offcuts I've used here, pallet wood. There's the same width as the bottom, and I put my set square here just to make sure it's square. So obviously to put the base in there, you guys are going to think, oh yeah, he mentioned the fact he standardised it to 4 feet by 2 feet. Wrong. It's going to be slightly over that because I've got the outside of the wood to measure there. So in fact, because I want to measure the base plate exactly to go into that wood, it's going to be 50.5, and it's going to be a little bit bigger this way. I could go a little bit over 2 feet, so it's going to be 50.5 by 2 feet. That's the size I'm going to make my slats for. Okay, so that's your base plate there. You can see all done, but I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to put the logs on this side, so they're ½ an inch off the ground anyway, but ow, I want them even higher. So I'm going to use some of these. These are the sort of support joists in between the pallets that the pallet slats go across, and they're much, much thicker. They look sort of 4 by 1 inch. So I'm going to put some of those along here as supports and to keep it off the ground. Up the other way, obviously, nail them in. You've got quite a long nail on there, probably through the pallet and going about another 2 inches, maybe a 3 inch regular round head nail. And then that's pretty well ready to be joined on the base to the 2 sides and the back. We're getting close. There we go. Up. With the bases on, the supports to keep it off the ground are both on there. They're sort of 3 inch by 1.5 inch, and pretty stable. It's sort of what I call figuratively taking shape. So all I've got to do now is I'm going to have to get a support to make the front of the roof here for that apex. A couple of struts, we can fill that in and we're getting close. So I need to find another piece, a single piece, same height as the top of this apex, and build it in from the front here. Okay, taking shape. I'm going to put a spar, I'll cut a spar of pallet wood to go across the bottom here, just meeting the outside edge at the bottom edge there. That'll just stop initially the logs coming out from the bottom, so it just gives you a little bit of a stop. And they're going to put another one, a spar of the thicker back pallet, longer wood that I had, right across the middle section here, tying into these two, and that will just put it in square. It's exactly the same measurement as the bottom, so I know it's going to be square, but it also gives me stability for putting out a centre support here, after which I put in the roof. So I'll get these nails in and we're one step further along. I just put the middle one in. What I do is just offer it up there, get one end in first, just loosely, just tack it. I don't drive it home in case it's going to be moved, and then I can move this other panel in or out to get it exactly right. And line up with the edge there. Also gives a bit of stability. You can get logs in all the way here and you can reach over the top as well. In fact, I'm going to put another 2 in there just to help tighten it up. Right, now I've had a bit of a cheat here because I'm running out of the long strips of pallet wood, so I'm using just a piece of batten wood there. It's an odd piece I had laying around. This will now go in the centre spar. I've measured it, centre of the apex at the back there, cut a little notch in it, it's the front support for the roof. I'm putting that there, and of course I can tie in here and here. Aids a little bit of support there, rigidity, doesn't get in the way of stacking any logs, but put that other big club hammer behind when you're nailing from this side to help absorb some of that shock. Okay, it's now in position. I need a couple of spans at the front here that's going to take the support for the slats. So I just get a piece of, let's get a little bit thinner pallet wood than that one. Go for that size. And I'm just going to put that angle right here on top of the point. Bring it up to the outside of there. And if you line it up, all just guesstimate, you've got the point at the top and go for the centre of this span, the support span. That should give you the middle. You can either freehand it like this, or you can go and get a ruler and do it. Don't move that though. I'll just come around the back here with the pen and just mark around the back edge. And if you get mixed up, you can put F for front, right. Okay, we'll just cut this there, and we'll put them up. Duplicate the same for the other side, just reverse the measurements. Well, it's not really a measurement, is it? It's all guessing. Okay, that's the front apex put on now. It's well supported there. All I'm going to do now is put the roof on, and we're nearly ready for staining and loaded with logs. But listen people, you don't have to do what I'm going to do with the roof. You could actually go and get some sterling board, you could get some thin plywood if you wanted. Just board that apex there, cut it to size, board it, and then you can put some felt on it like you do shed felt, just your regular sort of garden sheds. Mineral felt, we call it over here in the UK. I don't know what they call it in other countries, but you could use like a grainy felt, quite cheap. But then there's cheap and there's free. And I've still got some pallet wood left, and that's free. Well, now guess it's for what I'm going to be using for my roof. Okay, up we go. Now, I'm using the shorter boards here, slightly shorter. Now you can just nail them on overlapping like this. It's not a problem, but you've got to make 2 cuts, one at the front, one at the back. You can also measure them and cut them and then just nail them on. Or you could do them the easy way, which I do, which is nail one on but butt it up against the front, and then you can just overlap like this a little bit, only a tiny bit, maybe 1/4 inch, something like that, and you can work that all the way down. I mean really the logical way to start from here, work your way up, but I don't want to cut from the apex, and it is only a log store. So if I do it like this and just put that slope on it, any water is going to run down off here, all the way down, and then with that nailed in position, I get that reciprocal saw. I just make 1 cut at the back, And this side is nice and neat because it's flush. That side, if it's a bit raggedy, no one's ever going to see it at the back. Just a sneaky way I've got to doing it. And I do 1 cut instead of 2. Okay, that's that overlapping done. So that saved me buying board and it saved me buying mineral roof felt. So made use of the pallet wood as well, and it's overlapped. Because it's overlapped, the water won't run down between the cracks. Maybe you get rain driving in a storm up under there, who knows. Certainly goes through there, but the main thing is the air can circulate through there, and the rain, if it comes straight down, just trickles all over this, runs down the side, drops off, keeps the bulky logs dry. All that remains now, do the same the other side. We're nearly there. Well, there's no better way than to give it a finishing touch of a finial just up the top here. Not needed, aesthetic only. But it keeps me happy. Okay, there you have it now. All finished, roof's all done. Now you can do one of 3 or 4 things. You can leave it as plain wood. Just leave it as the raw wood if you're not really worried about that. You can, if you want, paint it. But remember, it's a softwood. Most pallets are made of softwood. It'll suck the paint up, so you'll probably need a primer, an undercoat and a white gloss. But the upside of that is it would, of course, last longer. You could also use wood preserve on it. Expensive, but it will last longer. Or you can use what we use over in the UK, which is just like a colouring stain. It's not really a protector. It does protect it a bit, keeps the rain out. But don't forget, the rain's going to trickle down and run off anyway. And you've got to have that air circulating in there, you know, to keep those logs from actually getting mildew and going rotten, and then they're no good to you at all. So there we are. Has anybody noted a little change, a little subtle change I made? That's right. The decor at the top's been changed. I got my jigsaw and I thought, I don't really like that triangle. I'm going to do something very artistic. And that's what I cut out with the jigsaw. I think it's quite cute. Just adds a little bit extra to it. All I'm going to do now, put it outside. I'll put some logs in it and we'll show you the absolute finished product. Next thing is the fire. Well, there we go, that's the log store for you. All that remains is I've got to load the whole thing up with logs now. It keeps them dry, it keeps the air circulated, you've got easy access. They don't sweat, they don't go mouldy. You can just rotate them and use them as you want. I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I've enjoyed making it. It's cost me zippo, nothing, just pallets. That's all I've made this out of, just pallets. It will last a good few years, maybe 3-4 years. Worst case scenario, you saw it up and you put that on the fire. But it should work for a good few years. There's only one other thing to do. That's go indoors and get rid of all those offcuts of wood I've got. Yes, they're going on my log burner. Well, this is where all my offcuts go. Straight on the log burner. And after all that totally awesome hard work, what do I deserve? Yes, a totally awesome glass of wine. I hope you enjoyed that. Watch us again for some more tips. As for me, it's time to relax. Cheers.